Hi, I'm Davina Shemaya. Hello to all of you, bold, beautiful, brilliant, highly evolved souls. Today, I would like to talk about you are enough for this world. I think many of us highly sensitive people who were scapegoated um, were conditioned to believe that we just simply were like a defective human, that we were not enough, that we were not capable of handling life, or that we didn't have what it takes, or that we just couldn't cope very well. All of these kind of things were put onto us by our parents and by our siblings. As a scapegoat, it's really an unconscious thing that the whole family gets involved in. But of course, the narcissistic parents probably, do it more. So when we are, when you're in the shame-based identity, you just might always have this sense that of feeling, ashamed and not even realizing that you're feeling ashamed because you're just living in it 24/7. In this kind of shame, feeling you're incapable and incompetent and just not as good as everybody else. And but once you start to heal, you'll start to have the flashbacks. And that's when you might start realizing that these feelings are indeed a flashback to what you experienced as a child, when your parents would shame you, or fail to acknowledge who you were, and your accomplishments, your gifts, your talents, your abilities. I mean, you came into this world so brilliant, intuitive and sensitive and highly aware and all these things. And your narcissistic parents could not handle that. When they saw you shining, it just reminded them of, how ugly and, like all their shame kind of came up. They just started thinking, oh, I'm so, ashamed and ugly and disgusting and incompetent, and I'm a failure. And it all brought that up for them. So the only way that they could cope with that, because they couldn't deal with feeling that shame themselves, was to project it onto the scapegoat. And or as Jay Reed says it, he says they relocate it. So they're like relocating their shame from themselves into you. You become this like receptacle for the shame of the family. And of course that, because that keeps them, lets them stay in their denial. So it's, I think of, some of the ways. I was in a flashback this morning, and really it was so dark and just gloomy, and I felt exhausted, and just felt like, how am I even gonna do my laundry today? It was just like, oh my God, like, and how am I gonna go to work on Monday? Like, it just felt just really horrible. Like, it was just this dark cloud that sort of came over me. And I started to get like angry. I started getting angry at my father, because I remembered how much that he used to, like, I'm starting to come out of denial about how much he would, shame me, or like just constantly like these kind of like really clever little put downs. My parents were covert narcissists, so it was very like just under the, they just kind of slid it in there. And it was, for example, I lived in Japan for 10 years. And the only thing I can remember my father saying, he would call me up on the phone and he would say, have you done any sightseeing yet? Why haven't you done any sightseeing around Japan? And I'm like, and that made me feel shame, like I'm not doing enough. And I'm living in a foreign country. He has never even left the freaking continent. And you know, see, like now it becomes very clear, you know, I would have told him to go fuck himself back then. I wish I could travel back and, you know, tell him to, you know, I would just hang up the phone. Um, because that's just, yeah, he's just projecting his own sense of failure onto me, thinking like I'm not doing enough, but I'm living like, instead of ask, like a healthy parent would be like, how's it going in Japan? What are you doing? And how's your job going? Wow, you're teaching English there. Wow, like how many students do you have every day? And, you know, like my whole career as a teacher was pretty much not even acknowledged. And so it's really important to acknowledge these things yourself, and also to get other people to mirror that to you. Um, you know, another thing I remember my dad saying was, you know, I told him I wanted to be a life coach, and he said, I thought you have to be dynamic to be a life coach. So again, it's one of these little like snide kind of comments. Um, you know, not a really direct insult or put down, but just like, you know, then he would fear monger me. That was a big thing too. Fear mongering. Well, what if this happens? And how are you going to do that? And I'm noticing those, that fear. It's almost like just a record player now that I'm noticing in my head. Well, what if this happens? And I could hear my dad's voice almost. It's like, well, what if this happens? And what if that happens? And how are you going to do that? He was always just like questioning me and doubting me. And that was, again, his own self-doubt projected onto me because he didn't want to deal with it. So the more that we see this, the more that we see what our parents are doing, then we start to come out of the denial, because otherwise we're believing it. We're believing that I am defective, I am incompetent, you know, I can't handle this world, I'm not enough. But when we start to come out of the denial and we start to grieve, the truth will just, you know, it's just like slowly opening your eyes. It'll just come very gradual, but you'll start to see the truth of what your parents were doing. And yeah, so when you're in these kind of flashbacks, or just even if you just generally have a sense that you're failing or falling short, or any of those kind of shame kind of feelings, just really, you know, Pete Walker recommends like writing a list down, like write a list down of your qualities, your wonderful qualities and your abilities, like all the things you can do and all your accomplishments, like, and like everything that you've done. And even the fact, like I don't think I've even really like acknowledged the fact that I am awakening and evolving myself. Like it's a humongous thing to do. It's tremendously courageous and takes an extreme amount of strength. So if you're doing this work, that's incredible. That is remarkable. You're probably in the, I don't know how many people are awakening, but it's probably, you know, I don't know, 3% of humans. Like it's probably pretty small. So if you're here and you're doing the work, yeah, always like just try to give yourself as much, you know, that pride as you can. And I think it's especially on the father's side, you know, that we expect our father to be proud of ourselves and proud of us and give us encouragement and acknowledgement. And that's, you know, that's kind of a little bit of the role of the father. So if we didn't get that from our father, we need to give it to ourselves and find friends and other people who are going to reflect that to us. So yeah, I hope that was helpful for you today. And you are way more than enough today for this world, for this day, for this lifetime. And yeah, I've, you know, after being a nanny and working with highly sensitive children, I mean, and with parents who value their gifts, you know, they're amazing, you know, like really amazing little humans. It's just mind blowing what I've seen, you know, from these small children, like 2 and 3-year-olds, that just blow my mind, you know. So know the truth of who you are. And yeah, and I'm really wishing you many, many blessings on this difficult and painful journey of healing and awakening, and I honor you. Thank you for watching. I am Davina at Boldness Blooming.